Okay. So would we like everyone to turn off their videos for now until it's Q&A time, Bryan?
Oh, it's completely up to you. It doesn't make me any difference.
Okay.
Maybe that'll help. Maybe that would just put us on the screen. I'm not
Yes,
sure.
it will. If everybody could please turn
Oh,
off
you
your
can
video.
you can do that as the manager.
Yeah, I'm looking and I can mute people, but
Yeah.
oh, I see. I'm going to have to turn off everybody's video here.
Yeah. I'll miss all those lovely faces.
There we go.
That might do it.
How does that look? Good?
Does that put us side by side?
Yeah, no, that's just one at a time. What I'm going to do is make you host too. Let's see.
I am a host. I'm just clicking away.
Okay. Yeah, only our videos are on now, but I wish we could do side by side. Let me see one more thing here. Gallery view. No, that's not going to work. Okay.
Because I know on the recording it'll be us side by side.
Oh, it will.
Someone just said you can make a large screen and small ones at the top. Oh, top right. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
You can see me now?
I can see you.
Yeah.
You've not disappeared.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so I'm in your corner screen. So if you talk right now, I'm in your corner screen.
Right. But
Right?
for me right now, you're on the main screen.
But when you talk, you get on the main screen, right?
Not for me. Not for me. When I'm small at the top. You stay big.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But on the recording, we should be side by side.
Okay, fantastic.
So it's all good.
All good. So we have a few more people.
Tina just said we can click speaker view.
Click speaker view. Where is that? Speaker view, video settings, speaker view. Place video next to the shared screen in the recording. Audio, video.
Yeah, you put everyone else back on the screen.
I did?
Top right, click speaker view will show.
Top right. Yep, no, I don't have that because I'm not webinar, I'm meeting. And I think that's the difference, but that's okay. You can still, we're good. You can still see.
As long as everyone can hear us, I think we're good.
Yeah, that's what's important right now.
Yeah.
Okay, can everyone hear us? Let us know in the chat.
Oh, under video settings, you can click hide none.
Yeah, that's what I did. I chose hide non-video participants. There we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Did that work? I think so.
Yeah, everyone can hear us. So are you doing the admitting when it pops up?
Yes.
Okay, I won't bother with it then.
Okay. We have 43. We still have about 15 more people. So why don't we start? And so you and I will both do that.
Yes, while you're talking, I'll admit. While I'm talking, you can admit.
Fantastic. Okay,
Yay.
so good to see everybody today. This is going to be a great 2 hours together. I'm Jeanette Yoffe, and I am a licensed psychotherapist in Los Angeles. And I predominantly work with children, adults, teenagers, adolescents, and families connected by foster care and adoption related to early traumatic experiences. I also train Department of Mental Health therapists and social workers here in Los Angeles on trauma-informed practice. And I thought no better person to invite to this topic but Bryan Post, because he is a leader in the field of child and family trauma. He has been in the field over 30 years now. He's written over 15 books, and I have a few of them here today: The Great Behavior Breakdown, and his famous book, Beyond Consequences, Logic, and Control. And he has a plethora of information to share with us. And I thought, what better way but to invite both of us here today in this time in our world, because this gives us an opportunity, and for parents to learn tools now that we're all at home together, to give you opportunities to utilize these tools. Maybe you've learned them already, but you may hear them differently. And when you hear something differently, you can do something different. So maybe today, Bryan and I can inspire you, and we want to give 3 of our best tools, alternating, so that we can support you during this time to stay connected, compassionate, not only with your children, but with yourself, as this is a trying time for many people. And so I'm so grateful and appreciative that Bryan could join us today. He's a leader in the field. He has a wealth of information, and we only have him for 2 hours. So we're going to go through our 6 points, and then we're going to open up a Q&A, because we know many people have questions on a multitude of topics, which we will also learn together. And I'm excited to be here with Bryan. Would you like to say anything as well?
Hey, Jeanette, it's an honor to be here. I will say, David, your video is still on, so if you pick your nose, everyone's going to see it. But we're fine looking at you, though. But Jeanette, thank you so much. It's always an honor to spend time with you as also a thought leader in trauma, and someone who has so much wisdom and expertise when it comes to children and adoption. And so I'm honored to be able to spend time with you and with all these fine folks that have joined us.
Yes, so welcome everybody. And I wanted to add one more note. Not only are Bryan and I professionals, but we're also paraprofessionals. And what a paraprofessional is we also come from this experience. I myself was raised in foster care for 6.5 years. Then I was removed to be placed in an adoptive family. And Bryan is also an adoptee. So we also have the internal understanding and compassion, and we've had our whole life of healing, and we're never fully healed, we're always healing, to process and make sense and have aha moments within ourselves in our own understanding, and then share that with professionals. So it's a healing journey for all of us, and we're all wounded healers in some way, and we all can share our experiences and have a lot to share with each other. So thank you for being here today. So Bryan will start with his stress model. A lot of my audience may not have heard you speak before. So let's begin with that. The first point is, what is important for us to understand about the stress model which you developed and created for this community to understand, Bryan?
So I think what I want to do is I want to actually show it. So I'm going to share my screen so everyone can see it. Here it is. Everyone should be able to see the screen there. And the stress model I came up with a long time ago. 1999, I believe, is when I first started. And essentially, it just happened as a culmination of work I'd been doing. As a clinician, I've always done a lot of in-home work. Probably almost exclusively, I've done in-home work throughout my career. And so with just studying attachment and trauma and the decade of the brain, which is the 90s, I just came to start thinking about behaviors. You know, we were so focused, everyone was so focused on behaviors so much. I just started, thinking about regulation and thinking about attachment. And then I realized, it's almost like a light bulb, that something is driving behavior. And really, for me, the question was, what is it that leads to attachment? Well, before a child can be securely attached, I think this is really important. Before a child can be securely attached to a parent, and before a parent can be securely bonded to a child, they both have to be able to regulate stress together, because attachment is the dyadic regulation of emotion. And so attachment is the ability of two people to be able to regulate stress together, and that allows a formation, a bond to occur. And so just through looking at that and studying it more, I started to think about behavior, and I finally realized, and when I started thinking about this, it really changed everything. All behavior arises from a state of stress. Is the stress model. All behavior. So all behavior, it doesn't matter what it is. It's good behavior, it's bad behavior, because there's distress, which is stress outside of your window of tolerance. There is eustress, EU stress, and these were all stress terms that Hans Selye came up with, I think in the 60s. Maybe even earlier, in the 40s, I can't even remember. But eustress, which is good stress, which is laughter, waking up, being focused, that's stress. And then there is also the stress of life, which is just the everyday stress we all go through. And so I came to realize that stress underlies all behaviors. And so it doesn't matter what the behavior is. And I started to really see this in the families I was working with. And I've been teaching this for the last 20 years, that all behavior arises from a state of stress. And in between the behavior and the stress is the presence of a primary emotion. And this is so basic. There are only two primary emotions, love and fear. And it's through the expression, the processing, and the understanding of the fear that we can calm the stress and diminish the behavior. So when we are able to express, process, and understand, and that takes a lot of different pathways, and how you express and how you process and how you understand. But essentially, when you can see the fear, when you can respond to the fear instead of react to the fear, you can begin to help the child, or even yourself, because this is important too, calm the fear. And by calming the fear, by expressing, processing, and understanding the fear, you calm the fear and you calm the stress. And when you do that, the behavior starts to reduce, because it's the stress that is manifesting the behavior. There's nothing else. It's not the thinking. It's not the willful disobedience. It's not the defiance. It's not the ADHD. It's not the PTSD. It's the stress. And stress underlies all of those diagnoses. And so when I really came to figure this out, let me see if I can back this up. I'm not sure I can back it up. Oh, okay, let's see. So when I really started to look at it, then I realized, so then it's interactive. It's a dynamic model. Because all behavior, so when you see behavior, when our children are stressed and they have behavior, then our brains see the behavior. And when our brains see the behavior, then we become stressed. When our brain sees the behavior, we become stressed, because our amygdala focuses on behaviors. Your amygdala is always looking for a threat. It's so simple. But it just gets so complicated. Now, let me tell you why it gets complicated. It gets complicated because when your amygdala sees a threat, it starts to release cortisol. High levels of cortisol start to overwhelm the thinking. Joseph Ledoux says, stress causes confused and distorted thinking and suppresses the short-term memory. So that's why it gets complicated. It doesn't get complicated because it's really complicated outside of us. It gets complicated because our brain gets overwhelmed. When our brain gets overwhelmed, and there's another slide I want to pull up too. When our brain gets overwhelmed, it opens up our brainstem. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But what happens is when parents see behaviors, they become stressed. When they become stressed, then their fear kicks up, and then their fear drives their behavior. So pretty soon you have two stressed out individuals behaving towards one another in a negative way. When you do that consistently, it forms a negative feedback loop. So that's the stress model in its essence. We have to be able to express, process, and understand the fear so we can calm the stress and diminish the behavior. The behavior is nothing more than a red flag for something underneath. It's like the tip of the iceberg. The behavior is just the tip of the iceberg. And I was just this morning, and then I'm going to shut up for a minute, Jeanette, so you can talk. I was just this morning on a call. I had a call from one of my families, and the mom was distressed because she had just had an episode with her son, and she was feeling overwhelmed. And so one of the first things that I always do, and I think about this so much, the same things that we as clinicians and coaches and therapists that we ask our parents to do for their children are the same things we have to be able to do for the parents. So when the mom is calling me and she's in distress, I am breathing, I am calming myself down, I'm getting really present. And I've also found that one of the things I do to stay in the moment is I'll fiddle around with something. So I was actually, while I was talking to mom, I was pulling the dead branches off of my little tree back here. And I'm talking to her and I'm picking off the little dead branches, because what I'm doing is I'm regulating my system. I am keeping my fear and my stress down so my behavior stays down, so my negative behavior stay down. I stay focused. I keep my thinking clear. And so as I'm listening to mom, she starts to get regulated. As she starts to get regulated, she starts to tell me about the scenario. And now I'm listening effectively because I'm present. And as she's telling me about the scenario, we're just processing it. And then we start looking at it. And as we start looking at it, because she's been listening to all my stuff and reading the stuff. And as we start looking at it, she's like, oh, I missed that. I missed that. Oh, I could have done, because one of the things she said is he spewed his Dr. Pepper, and she said two big things. One, she said she went in her room and closed the door. So I said, when he's upset, is he getting aggressive? And she said, no, I've just found that sometimes it's best for me to leave the room. And as soon as she said it, she realized that triggers abandonment. And I said, that's one of the things we got to do, is we got to be able to figure out how you can stay physically present and emotionally present when he's upset. If he's not becoming aggressive, there's no reason to go in your room and close the door. So really, she's regulating herself. The second thing she said is he spewed his soda on the floor. So she pretty quickly made him clean it up, which then just overwhelms him even more. And I said, well, let's talk about when you made him spill the soda when he spilled the soda on the floor, you want him to clean it up. Emotionally, if we're looking at him as a 2-year-old and sometimes even an infant, she said he wouldn't be able to clean it up. I said, not only would he not be able to clean it up, he wouldn't be able to clean it up effectively. Have you ever asked a 2-year-old to clean up a spill? She said, so I said, it's not that we don't want him to learn how to clean up the mistakes. That's not what I'm saying. She said, you're right. What you're saying is it wasn't the right time. Perfect. It is just getting us to get regulated enough so we can slow down, so we can realize that underneath the behavior, there's stress and there's fear. And that's what we have to attend to. We have to attend to the stress and the fear. And when we do that in time, very short periods of time, the behavior starts to change. So with that, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bryan. Okay, so that's the stress model, point 1. Someone just said, what if they keep telling you to go away? Okay, I'm going to speak about that, because here's where the next point is. It's how do we find the stressors and reduce them? We need to find out what is stressing the child out. So we have to become an owl. That's observe, watch, and listen. Observe, watch, and listen, and breathe. The first person that needs to observe themselves is the parent and recognize how to take responsibility over their own reactivity. So we're just going to do a quick breathing, okay? We have a third nerve in the body, which is called the polyvagal nerve, which gets hijacked when we become overwhelmed and stressed out. So we need to learn how to hack that stress, that nerve in our body, so it can stay online, stay connected with ourselves in order to stay connected with our children. So the first thing we need to do, and I use a lot of lavender oil, you put a little bit in the palm of your hand. I have some right here. I highly recommend you get some. If you're not allergic, you can imagine you're breathing in your birthday cake. So you put some in the palm of your hand. We can all do this together and imagining, if you don't have lavender oil, put a tent over your nose. You're going to breathe through your nose, taking a big deep breath. Through your nose, bring the breath down to your belly. Stressful breathing happens up here. Bring the breath down to your belly. See if you can hold it. Imagine you're filling up a balloon with air. See if you can hold it. 1, 2, 3. And now release it with an ocean breath. And when I say ocean breath, I mean you're really going to release even more than you would naturally. I want it to feel unnatural. So breathe in again. Let out an ocean breath. And really let out that breath until you can't do it anymore, because what it's going to do, it's going to make you take in even a bigger breath. And you will begin to deep breathe and slow down the nerves in your body. And I highly recommend you teach children and adolescents how to do this. I made a video. I have a new channel. It's teaching children mental health tools. It's called Just Chill for Kids on YouTube. And one of my videos is 5 ways to hack your stress. Children need coping skills. We need coping skills, and we need to put them in practice every day. The minute we start feeling our stress coming, we begin to breathe. It's free. You can do it at any moment, and it needs to be conscious and present. So we need to be an owl to ourselves and to our children.
Observe, watch, listen.
And listen, okay?
I like that.
Observe, watch, and listen. Because what do you always say, Bryan? Nonverbal communication is how much percent?
80 to 90%.
Right, 80 to, nonverbal communication. So we need to be aware of our nonverbal, which brings me to the next piece of this, and that is trauma, overwhelming, scary experiences are absorbed through the nervous system, through the body, through the 5 senses. Smell. One of the first responders for the San Bernardino shooter, I always listen to first responders and people who've experienced trauma. They always talk about a sense, memory. So we need to understand, and that first responder, he said he'll never forget what blood smelled like. He'd never smelled that before. And, you know, we talk about uncomfortable things. This is a real story, a real person who will now have a very strong sense memory to smell. So anything that smells remotely like blood will trigger his stress response, put him back in that experience and back in that place and time. So we need to understand that what's hysterical right now could be and may well be related historically to something in the past. Remember that phrase, what's hysterical? If it's really big, it's coming up for a good reason, because it's needing our attention, it's needing our understanding, it's needing us to understand that something sensorially just triggered a stress response for that child or adolescence. So the 5 senses, it could be something they smelled, it could be something they heard, a firecracker. If a child grew up with a lot of gun violence in their neighborhood, is going to startle if they hear a firecracker. even kids who've been physically abused, when even a parent is not aware of their nonverbal and they move too fast and the child flinches, the parent is not aware of their movements, which is another nonverbal cue that could startle a stress response for that child. So let's go through. So we have smell, sound, touch. Children who've been sexually abused cannot tolerate touch. It's just way overwhelming. It stimulates and it makes them feel vulnerable. We are all in the stress model. We are all trying to gain a sense of control. And control, because it's beyond control, it's how do we manage all of these sensory input, filtering all this information. And kids have to filter so much day to day, and adolescents, and us as adults. It's a lot. We have to pay attention more to what's happening in our bodies through the senses. And taste, and what we're seeing, sight. So sight, smell, taste, touch, and sound. So know that trauma gets absorbed through the senses and it gets released, soothed, nurtured through the senses. So just keep that in mind. If you can find out, like the 5 love languages, what your child's love language is, find out which sense is more heightened for your child, because that's most likely where your child's going to need more soothing, more nurturing, more emotional and psychological understanding, that sense gets heightened and triggered more easily than others. So I have kids with ADHD that I work with who get overwhelmed with too much in the room. So we work a lot on closing our eyes, deep breathing, and going inside to find the answers, because outside is too stimulating. I have kids who cannot do their homework without either listening to music or not listening to music. So they want to wear noise off headphones. So that's the 5 senses. So the 7 nonverbal cues I'd like to go through quickly, and then I want to talk about mapping, and then we'll come back to you, Bryan.
Yep.
So the 7 nonverbal cues are, you need to be aware of your 7 nonverbal cues and your child's 7 nonverbal cues. Because when a child becomes stressed, they're going to act it out, and you're going to see it through one of their nonverbal cues. Eye contact, the way they look at you, and be aware of the way you look at your child. We're not necessarily aware of how we look. Facial characteristics. When I first started this work, I was so passionate working with foster youth that I was very intense. And I looked very intense when I asked them questions, and I almost scared them because I had so much passion. And my supervisor said, I need you to go to the mirror, take a look at yourself when you're asking questions, and I want you to open up your face and be curious, because that's going to open up your face and create an environment of safety for that child as opposed to distress. So when I learned that, now whenever I feel my face get tense, I go, oh, open up my face, and I'm open. And then the child or the family that I'm working with has the ability to be more open. So we're the thermostat for setting the tone and the stress levels in our households. And I am also a parent. Bryan is a parent too. I have a 13-year-old, and there's a lot of feelings happening right now. So I have to be aware of my nonverbals and his nonverbals. So eye contact, facial characteristics, tone of voice. Tone of voice. And we want to have a firm, if we're setting limits, tone of voice, and a joining, connection, soothing, nurturing tone of voice. Sometimes we don't know where the balance is. So the way you do it is when you shift your thinking from, I'm going to ask him a question, to, I'm going to be curious about a question, your voice actually goes to a high note C. If there's any musicians out there. And this is an attachment tool. When you are curious when you see something like spilled milk in the kitchen. You observe, watch, and listen to yourself. You take a deep breath. You go, I'm going to be curious about this so that I can maintain my own stress level and my child's, and it will work in my best interest because you'll actually get more information about the spilled milk than you would if you were inquisitive, interrogative, angry, and upset. It's in our best interest to utilize these tools because they help us gain information, be more effective as parents, and help our children regulate and tolerate what they're experiencing. So that's tone of voice. Gestures. Now I'm from New York. I talk a lot with my hands. I'm stay aware if it's too much. So gestures. I had a foster mother. Whenever I'd come to her, she would do this. She'd get upset with me, and that made me feel like a burden, and it made me feel like I could not come to her. And she wasn't aware of what she was doing. She was not trauma informed. So we have to be aware of what we're communicating with our hands. If you could keep your hands at your side, just shake them out a little bit. We hold a lot of stress through our hands, and we can release a lot of stress through our hands. So let your hands go to your sides. Posture, the way we hold our bodies. I had a father in a family therapy session like this, and he said, I don't know why my daughter does not open up to me, does not share with me her feelings. And I watched my tone of voice. I took a deep breath and I said, can you observe, watch, and listen? Take a look at how you're communicating to your daughter. And he realized he was shut off from his own feelings. So how could he model for his own daughter to be open with her feelings with him? And it was very hard for him to put his guard down, to make himself vulnerable and open. So when we become aware of what we're communicating, when we model and show, I'm going to show you how to be open with my gestures and my posture, so that it gives you the space and modeling for you to do the same, so we can build this relationship of safety. Emotional safety is what so many of these kids need, because they do feel vulnerable very much, and they want to feel more resilient, competent, and connected. So posture. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 is timing. How fast or slow you respond. And with kids who've experienced trauma, we want to just take it a little slower. I don't mean like slow motion, but just slow things down a bit, because they're already racing. So we want to set the tone, be the thermostat in the home. Slow things down, because we actually have more flexibility right now being at home, to not have to rush to go to school and get ready. It's so much more of a relief for families right now, that morning routine. And kids are actually more able to stay on task without all the stimuli of the classroom and the kids, and they're actually able to get their work done better. But kids with IEPs who need that extra dose of attention and intervention, they do need more time in parenting, which I'm sure Bryan will talk more about, so that they can do their work. A lot of kids, even my own son, just needs me to be there, like a teacher or a fellow student would be there helping. We actually do need to be with our kids more during homework, to help them just feel a sense of normalcy and routine. And this is how we get things done together. And then timing and intensity of response. Are we running right in to rescue and save them, or are we going to sit back and wait for them to communicate with their nonverbal cues? Are they calling to us? Are they overwhelmed? Are we picking up on that information? Then we need to go to them sooner than later. If the cry is bigger than, this is hysterical, I think I need to put my book down and go attend to my child's cry, because it's intense. And wow, I'm feeling really intense right now. I need to attend to how what I need for myself. Do I need to just go outside and get a breath of fresh air right now, get some vitamin D, and slow things down inside myself? So the 7 nonverbal cues, it's find the stressor and reduce the stress. Is it something happening in you, or is something happening in your child? Observe, watch, and listen. And the last point is mapping behaviors. So it's not journaling, it's seeing behaviors that are hysterical, because a lot of the time we don't know what is going on. We're confused, especially kids who've been in the child welfare system and they come in when they're 5 years old and you have a foster child and you don't know what happened for the first 5 years of their life. So mapping is, so when you see a big behavior, get out a notebook, like go get put 5 pieces of paper together. It's literally being that sensory detective. Who, what, where, when, and how. Okay, so we were in the kitchen and a plate fell and my child started crying out of nowhere. Okay, it was my child, who, where were we, kitchen, what time of day, what just happened. You're going to start, when you just who, what, where, when, and how, you're going to start seeing patterns. Wow, every time something is really loud and explosive, my child gets very overwhelmed. So maybe her heightened sense is sound, and she needs things to be softer, quieter, because it's a startle response. It triggers her stress response system and keeps her in protective mode. So when you start mapping, you can start seeing patterns in behavior, and then begin to see, wow, what is heightened? Where do I need to pay more attention to help soothe the nervous system? What sense is being heightened? Because that's where I can learn to manage, help my child through, and also educate, psychoeducate them, which I'm going to talk about. That's my last point. How do you teach kids coping skills so that they can be trauma informed themselves? So that's it for me.
That's awesome.
For point 1.
That's fantastic.
Awesome.
I do want to ask our audience right now if you guys are taking notes. And let me tell you why this is important. It's important to listen. It's also important to take notes, not necessarily that you are going, we'll even go back and read them again, but it helps commit it to memory. So hopefully you will go back and read it. But I've been doing this for over 20 years and I'm taking notes. Like I'm loving this stuff that you're saying, Jeanette, and it's fantastic. So I really want to encourage everyone, take notes, because it's another way to reinforce learning. In order to really get this stuff, to get to Jeanette's level of expertise, it's years of repetition, 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 repetition.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And the hysterical behavior is big grief reactions. There's grief, big tears, explosivity. Those are all protective behaviors because something inside is stressing them out, something outside is stressing them out, and they may also be having a healthy response to an unhealthy internal stress
Absolutely.
response that is just happening from something hysterical. It could be, I just saw this man across the street and he freaks me out because he reminds me of my trauma, but I can't name it to tame it, which is what Dan Siegel talks about, because they don't have the ability to express if they don't know what's happening in their body. Because in your stress model, these early memories are implicit. We can't cognitively remember what happened, but our body remembers. So it becomes this startle response for kids. So, hysterical is aggression, pushing, yelling very loud. And the louder they yell, they're communicating, I need somebody to hear me and understand me. And I want to say one thing, and then we're going to come back to you, Bryan. I had this child who kept saying, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid. And the father said, you're not stupid, you're not stupid, you're not stupid. And I said, that's the symptom. We need to meet him where he is. And it's so hard for parents because we don't want to say you're stupid, but what we want to say is, I see there's a part of you that believes you're stupid. And it's hard to say that to a child. And I'm going to grow another part. And I want to tell you that I see a child or adolescent who's learning. And the way we learn is by making mistakes. So we need to acknowledge the symptom because he's going to continuously say, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, until somebody acknowledges and validates, yes. And that's going into the trauma. And if a child feels and believes something about themselves, we join with it and we can influence them with little seeds in showing them there's a different way of seeing themselves. Because if we see their child differently, we see a different child. If they can see themselves differently, they can see a different person. So.
Perfect. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to go back, Jeanette, and I'm going to share my screen again.
Sure.
Because I want to pick up on something that you were just saying, where you were talking about what's hysterical is historical. And I really want our attendees to grasp that concept. Think about that. And you said so many fantastic things. What's hysterical? So when your child is hysterical, they're having hysterical behaviors. They're in hysterics. They're way outside of the norm. They're way outside. And for them, it may seem like it's the norm, that it's the average, but they're hysterical. It is historical, meaning it is not present. It is not about what's going on in this moment. It is about where a historical place they're in. And that's why I want to talk about the brain when we talk about aggression, because aggression can be hysterical. But the thing is, as I mentioned earlier, your amygdala perceives a threat. So your amygdala is where cortisol gets triggered. Well, your amygdala sits right above the brainstem. And your brain, by and large, is a historical organ. So it stores memories. Your brainstem is where all of your memories get stored. The significance with the brainstem is also where trauma memories get stored, and trauma memories get stored in a fragmented, incoherent manner. So there are all kinds of pieces of a trauma that get stored in this memory system, whereas you can have other memories. Now you think you have a good experience. A part of what that experience, if we use Jeanette's mapping example, with a memory, there's a who, a what, a when, a where, and a how. And that's formed in a coherent memory. But a trauma memory is incoherent. So the who, the what, the when, the where, and the how are not all connected. So there's a who floating around. So there's an image of a person, or there's an image of a place. There's a what, there's an experience that occurred, that it's floating around. There's a when, it's connected to some area, some stage in development. There's a where, it's a location somewhere in the brain. And then there's a how it all worked out. And that's all fragmented. Well, what happens when your amygdala reaches a high enough level of cortisol, it opens up the brainstem. When the brainstem gets open, that's where all the trauma memories are at. And the only thing that has to happen is the energy in that moment, in that present moment, has to represent some semblance of the energy in the history, in the past, to connect with that fragmented memory in the brainstem. It connects with the who, or connects with the what, or connects with the where. Because they're fragmented, it's not a congruent memory, so you don't know. But all of a sudden, this energy from that memory gets generated, and that energy is what we call emotion. Emotion is energy in motion. So all of a sudden, that energy gets generated from the brainstem, and then all of a sudden, the child is becoming hysterical. They're becoming hysterical because it is coming from a historical place. So it's that brainstem that opens up. That is so important. So when we start talking about aggression, First of all, I always, anytime I'm looking at aggression, you have to realize that developmentally and emotionally, it's in the 2-year-old developmental spectrum. So when you have a child who's aggressive, it's because they're regressing to around the 18 to 24 month period of time. So one of the things as a parent you can always do is do a little investigating and ask yourself, what may have been going on for my child around that time, around that developmental stage, because typically that's where aggressive behaviors come from. But number two, and just as important, is you've got to ask yourself, what is your own experience with aggression? So as a parent, what is your own experience with aggressive energy, with violence, with any kind of abuse, with any kind of aggressive episode? What's the tie-in? What's in your brainstem is what I'm asking you to all of a sudden make conscious. Because what will happen is your child will become stressed. When your child becomes stressed, they start to tip into that brainstem, which puts them closer to that hysteria. And then all of a sudden, their sensitivity increases. It dials up 10 times, tenfold. And then they're looking for more of a threat. So at that point, just your energy alone, just the energy that you manifest alone is enough to tip your child into feeling like they've got to protect themselves or they've got to keep you with them. So see, a lot of times we look at aggression as children trying to hurt. For some children, because their historical experiences are so traumatic and confusing, some children attack because they think the parent is abandoning. They attack in order to keep the parent with them. They attack as a mechanism for control. They don't attack to hurt or to push away, but the parent ends up getting hurt and pushed away through the attack. But actually what the child is trying to communicate is, I'm terrified you're going to leave me. So you've got that dynamic. So a lot of times what happens, and I just want to try to make this as complete and as simple as I can. A lot of times what happens with aggression, and there's all different forms of aggression, but what we typically, using an aggressive voice, using an aggressive posture, using just an aggressive facial expression, just getting really intense, that can all be perceived as aggression. But typically what we do is we tie that in with our own past aggressive physical experiences. So a lot of times we want to connect aggression with being physical, with actually being violent. And I believe we have to create some space between those two, because a child yelling, a child threatening, a child seeming intense is not violence. You're not actually at risk. But if your own amygdala perceives that loud voice as a tie-in to future violence, then what happens is your anxiety increases. When your anxiety increases, which comes from your amygdala, it shuts down your oxytocin. And when that happens, a lot of times we emotionally abandon our children. When you emotionally abandon, that's when the energy gets so intense, the child usually tips and becomes aggressive and assaultive. That's the difference, that a lot of times we don't realize that there is a space between aggression and assault. The brain gets so focused on the potential assault that we get misattuned and we miss the cues, the aggressive cues, and we don't attend to the aggressive cues, and then the emotional abandonment tips the child into assault. So, and that's a really tricky dynamic. And so a lot of times working with parents when it comes to assaultive children is different than working with them when it comes to aggressive children. A lot of times your child may be aggressive, but they're not assaultive. And you have to really ask yourself, how can you stay present? How can you stay emotionally present when your child starts to indicate aggression energy? And that it's always good to keep in mind that they're two. He's two. He's two. Because when you can say he's two, what you're actually doing is dialing down your amygdala. When you can dial down your amygdala, you actually give yourself an opportunity to be closer towards turning on your oxytocin response. But what it does more than anything is it keeps you out of your brainstem. You as the adult have to be able to stay out of your brainstem when it comes to aggressive energy, because your child is 9 times out of 10 going to tip into their brainstem. Then we have all kinds of different funny little energy exchanges that either reinforce or start repatterning what's at the brainstem level. And that's why, Jeanette, when you say what's hysterical is historical, when children are in hysterics, and this, so then what I always say is, when children are in their worst behavior, when they're in the midst of their behavior, that's when you have the greatest opportunity for a breakthrough. Because when they're in the midst of their severe behavior, that means they're in their brainstem. So Jeanette says when they're hysterical, that means they're historical. That means you have an opportunity in that moment to rewrite history, to begin to rewrite history. Bruce Perry says all children, the brain always returns, all children and adults, the brain always returns to the way the event was handled the last time. The last time. So when your children are having hysterics, they're back into a historical experience, and you can meet that historical experience in a present, in an attuned, in a powerful way, in a loving way. And loving doesn't mean without being firm. Loving doesn't mean without getting intense. But in a loving, regulated way, then what you do is you plant a new experiential seed in their brainstem that connects to that historical experience. So the next time they get upset and they drop into that historical experience, they first have to go through that little seed that you've planted. And that's how we start reworking the brain, not just with aggression, but with all behavioral experiences. You are changing the brain. We've got to get away from this thinking of you change trauma and you change children's behaviors just by changing the way they think, by that we can punish them, or we can consequence them, or we can threaten them, or we can spank them, or we can yell at them enough, and we'll change the trauma and the experience. You can't. You've got to change the brain. And the only way you change the brain is repetition of positive experiences, relationships, and environments. That's how we change the brain. That's how you consistently work to overcome aggression.
Yes, yes, it's through experience, because a lot of these kids live in toxic stress, and toxic stress is how that develops from the Child Development Center at Harvard University. Talks about there's 3 types of stress. Positive stress, which is like first day of school, first time we're at a board meeting and we're sharing or showing up at an event, and we get through it and it's all good. Then there's tolerable stress. That's the next stage, where something more intense occurs for the child, and there's someone there with them debriefing, helping them pull them through so they can tolerate it and move through it. What we deal with is the 3rd type of stress, toxic stress. We have kids who have not had a caregiver come in during these intense, overwhelming, hysterical moments. And it does take, in research, 45 minutes for someone to become PTSD traumatized. That means nobody's there for 45 minutes and they're helpless, hopeless, and powerless. And they will show some PTSD-like symptoms. And not all kids who experience trauma even have PTSD symptoms, but they have a lot of experiences, and through their behaviors, we can see so many things happening for them. Grief reactions, memories, thoughts, sensations in their bodies. So toxic stress is just what Bryan's talking about. We're dealing with kids who haven't had that person outside of them, who's a secure base that's with them in this very scary moment within themselves. They need to see, have a line of sight supervision. Somebody's here with me. Somebody's got my back. Somebody can handle this with me, because by gosh, this is intense for me. You think this is intense for you? This is intense for me. So it's us. And I've been doing this 20 years, and I've worked very hard on my own stress responses to stay connected. The more you do your work, the more you're able, the more you go deeper within yourself, the deeper you can go within your child. The more you trust your instincts. Wow, my child just needs me to sit with him. I'm just going to sit. His love language is time. Too much sound, too many words. He can't stay connected with me. He just needs quiet time alone, and that's where I'm going to meet him. And that's where we're going to tolerate the relationship first together. He needs to learn how to have a relationship with a new caregiver, because his blueprint is saying all caregivers are not there for me, and you're going to do the same. So I'm going to do everything in my power to reject you and make you see you can't do it. But the more we say, you know what, I can, and I'm not giving up on you, because I'm not giving up on us. So I say, when we're dealing with toxic stress, use a lot of we, us, we got this, we're going to get through this, we're doing the best that we can, we're having a hard time. Yeah, this is hard right now. It's a shared experience, because then you're going to teach your child how to tolerate the experience, and they'll be better able to move through it. And that's where we want to be. We want to have tolerable stress right now, not create more toxic stress, which is hard, because unfortunately right now there are more domestic violence cases. There are more calls to DCFS because parents don't have these skills. And that's one reason why I called on Bryan. We've got to come together. We've got to share this information and help everyone understand we all need to be trauma informed today as parents, because we're all under immense stress with all these new psychosocial stressors that we're having to deal with. So very important, the experience and that shared experience to teach children how to tolerate experiences. So my second point is, it's about connection before correction to help maintain a sense of stable and secure and safe relationship building, because a lot of kids have shame, and pervasive shame is very difficult for parents. So I'm going to go through this quickly, because I know we want to get through our points and go to Q&A. So shame is like this, and you'll know if your child is living in shame. I lived in it for many years. When these are red flags, when they take everything personally, they cannot receive any constructive criticism. When you correct them, they feel totally all wrong. When they do something wrong, they feel all wrong. When they make a mistake, they feel like they're the mistake. Okay, it's like a bubble around the child, and there's a reflection in the bubble that's a mirror. And the reflection is my bad self. All I see is how bad I am, how stupid I am, how ugly I am, how deficient I am. So when someone says, you're doing that wrong, all the child feels is, I'm all wrong. There's something wrong about me. They can't differentiate themselves from their behavior. And that's where we get really stuck, because when we're focusing on behavior, we're actually reinforcing more shame. Right, Bryan?
That's right.
So what happens is, when we point out, you've made a mistake, or that's not okay, I don't like the way you're talking to me, then that's disrespectful. Then they internalize, oh, I'm disrespectful. I'm going to show you disrespectful. I'm going to now blame, shame, and put that all on you, because I'm enmeshed. When I do something wrong and I disappoint you, I feel like a complete disappointment. So there's a cure. I want to say cure. There's no cure for anything. There's a tool to help manage shame so we can develop guilt. Because if we don't manage shame, then that person's going to be stuck for a long time in taking everything personal, not going to be able to manage their behaviors. They're going to take all their behaviors personally. So it's called the sandwich, which I'm now calling the shame-wich. So you have a piece of bread on the bottom, and this is not my idea. This is Holly Van Gilden. She's fantastic. She wrote Real Parents, Real Children. But this is her sandwich model, which I'm now calling the shame-wich. And I'm going to make a video on Just Chill to teach kids about, if you're living in shame, this is what you need to do for yourself. So the bread on the bottom is we want to separate the child from their behavior. So when you see your child acting out, and you'll know if a child's in, you can already tell already, I can tell some parents are thinking, oh, that's my child, takes everything personal, can't, whenever I correct, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to separate them from their behavior. You're going to step back and go, I love you. You're a good person. You're doing the best that you can. You're going to point out their strengths and vulnerabilities. I see how hard you're working. I know this is hard and you're doing the best that you can. You've got this. Then you're going to say, and the sandwich, whatever turkey, ham, lettuce, pickle, tomatoes in there, and put the emphasis on. And when we get in these big arguments and we're overwhelmed and we yell and throw things, that's what's not okay. That's what we need to work on together. We need to figure out that, because the bread on top is, you're a good kid and you're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. I love you. I love us. We're going to figure this out together because you're brave, you're courageous, and you're going to get through this. And we're going to figure this out together. So that's the shame-wich. When I have shared this with parents and they go and trust, because I live this, I have to do this with myself. Because there are times when I get very hard on myself, because I was in foster care. I always felt like there's something wrong about me, until I realized it wasn't about me, but I still have that part. We don't get over it. We learn to manage it our whole lives. And I go, hold on. When I start saying, you're not a good person, I go, hold on. Sandwich, shame-wich. You're a good person. I say 3 positive things. So you're a good person, you're doing the best that you can, you're good enough. And maybe saying that or doing that, that wasn't a good choice. And I'm going to work on that. I'm going to figure that out, because I am a good person, I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm good enough. And I deserve good things like other people. So that's the shame-wich. Apply that with your child. One last piece is to point to, how do we find the unmet needs and meet them? That was my second point, is we need to be trauma informed. And trauma informed is seeing your child differently. It's not, oh my God, look at this behavior. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Which is the typical response. It's, hold on, let me step back. Be an owl right now. What happened to you? Wow, because this is really big. What happened to you? That's where parents need to think. What happened to you and what's happening right now?
That's
Wow,
good.
because I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what it is. And it's hard. Wow, this is hard for us. And you know what? You see, I'm emotional. This takes a lot of, when you go there, you go there. And it's healthy to go there. Because what is life about? We're here for each other. We're here to connect. We need connection. We need others. We need to be seen, felt, heard, and received by others. That's how we survive. That's how we've thrived as the human race. Look at us today. We are all in this together. So pace yourself. So I'm going to go through this. This is an attachment tool. I love it. I use it as a parent. PACE. You don't have to use them in this order, but it just memorize it. I'm going to pace myself, okay? P is, I'm going to be playful, okay? I can't take everything so seriously because this is hard. You need to find time to play. the number one sign that you are either becoming compassion fatigued or secondary trauma or burning out is you lose your sense of humor. I do a whole day training on secondary trauma. You've got to stay connected to your sense of humor, okay? You must every day do something that makes you laugh, please, because Bryan with oxytocin just released some good endorphins. Trauma is hard, yes, to manage, but at the same time, a lot of these kids just don't know how to be playful. So you're going to apply pace to you and your child. My child, he was 5, he was in the back seat and he was horsing around, and I immediately went to pace. I said, okay, what am I do right now? P-A-C-R-E. And I said, you know what? I could take this very seriously right now, or I could do something very funny and shift everything. And he was upset, angry. We didn't go somewhere. I turned around and I made the funniest face, like, what's happening right now? Something silly. And all of a sudden, he started giggling and laughing, and the whole mood shifted. And I redirected him to be in relationship of oxytocin and enjoyment. And let's shift from whatever we can't have right now. Let's get unstuck and let's move through this. And so pace is be playful, and these are attitudes, present and patient, okay? This is hard. Be patient with yourself, be playful, patient, and present with your child. A is accept yourself. You're doing the best that you can. Maybe you've made a few mistakes. We all do. If you can, apologize to your child for your behavior, not for who you are. Oh, I didn't talk about that. Oh gosh, going back to shame. What happens is when we force a child who's experienced shame to apologize for themselves, they don't apologize for what they just did. They don't apologize for what they did. They apologize for who they are. It's like this, and I always act it out. If you tell your daughter or son, you need to go apologize and tell him I'm sorry, because we're all trying to teach kids responsibility, of course, right? We want to be good parents. But if we have a child living in shame, it's not going to work, because that child is going to fight you aggressively, not want to apologize, will do anything in their power to not do it, because when they go and they're either threatened because nope, you can't have ice cream after dinner unless you apologize, there's a consequence. You can't play with your friend again. All of these stressors then lead them to that apology. But what happens is you have a child who goes, fine, I'll apologize. And then they walk over that person with all their might and all their anger and all their protective mode. And they're like, I'm sorry. But what are they apologizing for? I'm sorry, I'm so bad. They can't separate themselves from their behavior. I see this all the time. So we as parents need to accept ourselves, and we need to accept our children, accept them separate from their behavior, because we want kids to be able to have the ability to show guilt for their behavior, not for who they are. So that when they go and apologize, they go, I'm sorry I did that to you because that hurt you. All right, I understand. It's different. They can still walk away feeling good about themselves, maybe not so good about their choice, but they can separate, differentiate. So don't be so hard on yourself. That's A, accept yourself. So when you make a mistake and you want to go to your child, you're also modeling. I did this with my son. I said, you know what? I'm going to apologize because I want to help teach him. I don't even need to teach him how to apologize by showing him. And I said, you know what? I'm sorry. I yelled this morning. I was having a difficult morning one morning. This is a few years ago. Yelled, and I saw that I startled him. And I was in my mode of getting ready for work, and I had to stop, slow down. I was stressed. I got down below eye level, which is what they talk about, which stimulates the executive thinking function of the brain. And I said, you know what, honey, I'm sorry that I yelled this morning, my behavior, because I saw that that scared you. And I'm sorry, I'm going to work on that. Do you accept my apology? And you have to be authentic. And he said, no. I said, okay, I'm going to do the P. I'm going to stay patient in this one. And then literally a minute later, he said, yes, Mom. And then he started to apologize to me about his behavior in different scenarios. And I said, there it is. You don't even have to teach these tools. You need to model them. We learn through relationship. So then C, P-A-C-E, and I could show it on the screen, but I won't, because I think it's important to hear things and experience together. C is be curious. Be curious with, whoa, how you're feeling, and be curious with how your child's feeling. Ask open-ended questions. What's happening right now? What are you feeling in your body? Where in your body are you feeling so overwhelmed? Can we name it? Can we color it? Can we act it out? I have an anger bag, a stress bag, a sad bag on my Just Chill for Kids videos, teaching kids skills to deal with these really big emotions with coping skills. And so be curious about what they're experiencing. And if you're experiencing something that's intense, that's okay. Find a listening partner. Find somebody you can talk to. A listening partner is something you set up. You both give each other equal amount of time to just listen, be heard, seen, and received. You don't fix each other, give unsolicited advice. That in and of itself is supportive and helps calm our nervous system. It helps us also organize and make sense of what we're experiencing. And then E, have empathy. Have empathy for yourself. Whew. There are days, I'm a trauma-informed therapist. I do attachment-focused family work. It is hard work. I come home and I have to cry, release, move through the experience that I just experienced with my clients so that I don't become traumatized. So have empathy for yourself, have empathy for your child. How hard it is for them to give you a little dose of vulnerability and in essence really give themselves a little dose of, I'm going to feel this experience. And I have somebody now that's pulling me through, and I'm going to give this a try because they're showing me that it's safe, and I'm going to take a risk. When kids start feeling confident, they begin to take risks, and that's what we want, a little bit at a time. So that's my second point, and I'm going to stop now.
Perfect. Fantastic. And my next point was lying, right?
Yep, that's a big one.
All right. So I have a formula for lying. Pretty much everything that I do has some kind of neurologic capacity backing for it. And it's called ignore the lie, don't ignore the child. And so there's a couple components to it. Number one is realizing that when we tell a lie, because children and adults tell lies, the reason we do so is because we are stressed. So first of all, a lie comes from a place of stress, and then it comes from a place of fear. And depending on the intensity of the lies, the significance is the deeper in your brainstem you go. So number one, your amygdala is already activated. So you're already stressed. If you go back to the stress model, you're already stressed, you're already afraid. If it gets intense, more stress is created, you start to tap into the brainstem, then it becomes life or death. So that's important. A lie is a manifestation of survival. So think of it at that level. It's a manifestation of survival. Children don't just lie to manipulate and control. They lie to survive. And when we are in survival, we all manipulate and control. That's really important. The thing is, When a child lies, the first thing you have to do, and this is almost where everything I teach starts from, is you have to not allow yourself to move into stress and fear. The lie is the behavior. The behavior arises from stress, which causes fear, which increases the behavior. The child lies, it causes you to become stressed. When you become stressed, it moves into your fear, which then increases your behavior, which is usually to say, don't lie to me. Tell me the truth. Stop lying. Well, as soon as you engage in that pathway, you're engaging in a fear-based pathway and you're creating more stress. What happens is the child becomes more stressed. They tap into the brainstem. Now they're in survival. Now they're potentially in life or death. You're never going to get the truth because physiologically they cannot tell you the truth because they feel like they are going to die. They will lie and lie and lie. So that's where, therapists sometimes call it crazy lying. It's actually not crazy at all, because we talk about children will lie about everything, about nonsense, and, just lie about stuff they don't have to. For that child and their experience and their level of stress and their level of fear, they absolutely have to lie. And if you have a child who's doing crazy lying, that's telling you you have a child who is consistently in a place of stress and insecurity. So what do you do about it? The child tells you a lie. Well, before I tell you what to do about it, I'm going to tell you a story to illustrate the point. It comes from Aranda Gandhi. Gandhi was the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. And he said, one day I had to pick up my famous grandfather from the airport and I was running late. And another good resource, not running late, I just jumped. A good resource is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Been around a long time. Aranda Gandhi's used to speak, I think, quite a bit in that community. But Nonviolent Communication, Marshall Rosenberg. So he said, I was running late and I finally got to the airport and my grandfather asked me why I was late. And he said, I lied to him. And he said, I lied to Gandhi. And he said, my grandfather sat there for a minute. He said, I didn't realize that my grandfather had already called the garage where I was at. He knew I was running late. He was just asking why, what was going on. He said, but then I lied to him. And he said, he sat there for a moment and tears started to well up in his eyes and stream down his face. And he looked at me and he said, I must give repentance for whatever it is that I have done to you that is so bad that you'd have to be so afraid of me, that you'd have to be so afraid of me that you would have to lie to me. So I will walk home these 15 miles. So Gandhi said he needed to give repentance for whatever it was he had done to his grandson that was so bad that would cause his grandson to have to lie to him. So Aranda Gandhi said, I still remember following my famous grandfather in the car, 5 miles per hour in the dark, as he walked home 15 miles to give repentance for me lying to him. So I share that story to illustrate when I tell you what to do about lying. When your child tells you a lie, and it doesn't matter the age, I saw Tina ask that question. What if they're 30? It doesn't matter. This is for all ages. The first thing you got to do is you have to take a deep breath. Because remember, you know they're lying. 9 times out of 10, you already know they're lying. You take a deep breath, you look at your child, and you say, honey, I love you. We're okay. Give them a little pat on the shoulder, and then you walk away. Now I'm going to say that again. You're asking your child some question. Did you take the chocolate chip cookies? They got chocolate on their mouth. They say, no, mama. No, daddy, I didn't take the chocolate chip cookies. Take a deep breath. Say, I love you. We're going to be okay. And turn around and walk away. Create some space. Create some distance. Give yourself more time. Really, this is for you. Give yourself more time to calm your physiology, because you're going to be agitated, especially if you have any kind of trust issues from your own past. If you've had a parent that used to lie to you, if you had an ex-spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend that lied to you, your stuff's going to get triggered. So you're going to get agitated. So you back away. You tell the child, I love you, everything's going to be okay. You walk away in order to calm your own physiology, to close your own brainstem. And then you wait an hour or two later. Now, in the same process of you walking away, what you're also doing is you're giving your child's brainstem an opportunity to close. Because as soon as you say to them, did you eat the chocolate chip cookie? They immediately, the amygdala immediately goes into survival. Red alert, red alert, red alert, stress, stress, stress. And if it's big and if it's really scary, depending on the history, may go into the brainstem that says, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And the next words that come out of their mouth are the only words that are fair is no, I didn't. So you give them an opportunity for the brainstem activity to calm down too. You come back 1 or 2 hours later, interrupt them in whatever they're doing, take their hand if you can, look them in the eye, and say, honey, I love you. I love you. And when you listen to these words, when you tell me a lie, when you tell me a lie. Now, I didn't say I love you. Now tell me the truth. Did you eat the chocolate chip cookies? I didn't say that. I didn't say, now go ahead and tell me you ate those chocolate chips. I didn't say any of that. I said, when you tell me a lie. And as soon as you use those words, when you tell me a lie, your child will immediately start thinking, which one? Which lie? Which lie? Which lie? Right? They don't know. They're just, which one? But that's their business. When you tell me a lie, it scares me. And it makes me sad. It makes me feel like you don't trust me. And if you don't trust me, I can't keep you safe. Do you understand? When you tell me a lie, it scares me, it makes me sad, and it makes me feel like you can't trust me. Now listen, now here's what's actually happening. What's actually happening is when you ask the child if they ate the chocolate chip cookie and they say no, their amygdala is firing off cortisol. Their thinking is not clear, their short-term memory is shut off. When you walk away and come back, when you take their hand, they're no longer in survival. They're no longer threatened. You say, honey, I love you. When you tell me a lie, it's just a matter of fact, when you tell me a lie, it scares me. It makes me sad. It makes me feel like you don't trust me. And if you don't trust me, I can't keep you safe. So all of a sudden, you're speaking to your child when their thinking is clear and coherent, where their short-term memory is online. And guess what they can now do? They can think about it. They can learn it. They can hear it. They can remember it. They can have empathy because their survival mechanism's not turned on. Now their heart is open. Your children don't want to see you sad. You might think your children do. They don't want to see you sad. They don't want you to be scared. They don't want you to feel like they don't trust you. They want these things. So they can hear it. They can feel it. And then all you got to do to wrap that up is you say, honey, I love you. When you tell me a lie, it scares me. It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel like you don't trust me. And if you don't trust me, I can't keep you safe. All you got to do is to wrap it up is say, do you understand? And they'll shake their head yes. And then you say, okay. You give them a little hug. You give them a little kiss. And you walk away. That's all you do. Ignore the lie. Don't ignore the child. Ignore the behavior. Attend to the stress and the fear. But first, attend to your stress and your fear. It's effective, been using it for 15, 16, 17 years. Someone on here, someone who's listening is going to try it one time and their child will stop lying. I've had that happen several times. Otherwise, just keep practicing.
What if you are not 100% sure they're lying? That's a
It's
question.
okay. Then when you say when, it covers all the other lies. So it may not be this one. You just say when, because it's not about that lie. It's about the stress and the fear.
And when I was talking about shame before, kids don't know, especially when they haven't had that healthy serve and return and relationship, they don't realize they have impact. That's what you're talking about, Bryan. They don't realize they have impact. What you do actually matters to me. And this is how I feel about it. That's how you're communicating to them. And when kids feel like they have impact, they're like, wait, are you talking to me? Wow, I'm actually here. Somebody sees what I'm doing. Somebody cares about what I'm doing. And someone cares about this relationship, that they're not going to sabotage it with consequences and yelling and forcing you to go to your room and you can't see your friends. It helps them have that new experience in relationship and maintain a sense of connection. That's trusting that, wow, my parent is not going to scream and yell at me if I tell them the truth, like the ones I had in the past. Like, right? I mean, I was a kid who got my mouth washed out with soap. I'm sure there's some other people here. When I said something, that didn't help me. That actually kept me further from my mother and more scared of her. And she wasn't trauma informed, and I forgive her now as an adult, but she didn't have a training like this. So yes, Bryan, fantastic. So my final point, then we'll open it up to full Q&A, okay? This will take about...
And we should probably just open up the dialogue box and we could scroll through there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Address
Okay.
as many as we can.
So it's, my last point is find the skill deficits and teach them. Okay. So kids don't have the coping skills. They just don't. And they don't know where they end and where they begin. There's one tool that I use. It actually comes from an adult approach to the body psychotherapy, integrative body psychotherapy. So you put yourself on one end of the corner of the room, and have your child on the other corner end of the room. And you're gonna go, we're just gonna play a game. When you say, this is my boundary, this is my space, when you're really, really mad, we're just gonna play a pretend game right now. I want you to say, I'm really mad right now, and this is when they're not mad, okay? This is a tool to just see, you wanna see how near or far they want you in relationship, because we don't realize, we sometimes we're too intrusive, we're too close, and feelings take up a lot of space. So you say, when you're really mad, so right now, just stay in your corner, say, I'm really mad, this is my boundary, this is my space, and the parent is going to start walking towards the child. And the child then says, stop. And the parent stops, and I want you to just look around and go, oh, so this is how near or far you want me when you're really mad, when you're really upset, when you're really aggressive. Again, pacing, let's be playful about this, lighten it up. Okay, thank you. That's information. I need to know that. Now let's do when you're really sad. Okay, when you're really sad, say, I'm really sad. This is my boundary. This is my space. Parent starts walking again. You'd be surprised. Are you further? And you don't have to question. This is not judgment. This is just information to maintain relationship and connection. Some kids want the parent closer, and some kids still want them in the same place. And you're like, oh, wow, I've been getting way too close when my child's sad. No wonder why she then pushes me away. It's too much for her. We are, and I'm a foster youth adoptee, we do a lot of push and pull, push and pull. I can only bring it close, but only so close. And I've been married 17 years. And I do that too. And I'm always learning how to manage this push and pull. And it takes time to figure that out, what feels safe and what feels not safe. Um, so yeah, and then you could do that when they're happy. Then you'll see how close they want you or not. And that's not about you. It's not, this is another phrase I use, it is not a rejection of you. It is a reflection of them and what they're feeling and how they feel in relationship and how they're learning to be in relationship. And when we learn to respect each other's boundaries, we learn to trust more, become closer, let people in more. I mean, that's the basis of trust. That's the basis of developing a secure attachment. So it's respecting and honoring each other's boundaries. Now, you wouldn't do this as a parent. Okay, now it's my turn. You are responsible for your reactivity. Your child's not responsible to take care of your needs. You're here to take care of your child's needs. So teaching them that's a tool. Teaching them the hand model of the brain. All kids, we want to teach kids how to be trauma informed themselves. When I first looked at myself as, wait, it's not what's wrong with me, it's about what's happened to me. Oh, I saw myself so differently. And then it's not that I won't behave like everybody else. I can't behave like everybody else because of what's happened to me, because developmentally I'm not my age. I'm actually, and I always ask kids, how young do you feel? Like when you have your big feelings, what age do you feel? Because you know what? That's totally normal for what you've been through. And that's where you can see yourself. Doesn't mean cognitively, physically, you're not 13, but emotionally and psychologically, you feel 5, because that's where those big feelings happen. And there's a part of you that's still stuck there, and that's okay. And we're going to get through this. And all you need to do is look at yourself and see yourself. There's a 5-year-old part that needs my attention. And what can I do? I think about 5-year-olds. What would a 5-year-old need to do to help nurture and grow my 5-year-old? And I do inner work with kids, with teens, even young adults and adults, so they learn how to reparent and remother these parts of themselves that have been wounded. And they can do some self-psychology and help nurture these parts so they can develop and they will catch up to themselves. So we want to teach kids how to see themselves differently. And the hand model of the brain, I do have a video also. It's called the hand model of the brain for kids. You can watch that. Teach them what's going on in their brain. Okay, this is happening for all of our brains. We're not going to teach them and go, this is what's happening for your brain. No, this happens for all of our brains. We flip our lids sometimes. Parents and kids, we both do it. And we need to learn how to keep our lids on so we can stay in relationship. And when we're about to flip our lids, go, I need, and nonviolent parenting has 5 A's. I need, and this is for parents, you're here to meet your needs and you're here to meet your child's needs. The 5 A's are, I need attention sometimes. Sometimes I need listening, but my child is not here to meet my need. I need to go find a therapist, a listening partner, or my partner. I need somebody to hear me, help me through, because this is hard, or a parenting coaching group. There's Facebook groups. I need attention. And you know what? My child, when they're screaming and having their big feelings, they need attention too. And doesn't mean I'm agreeing, fixing, I'm giving unsolicited advice. Sometimes just being with, okay, tell me what's happening. Breathing and staying quiet is sometimes the best solution. And kids help reorganize themselves just by being heard. Think about a support group. When everybody's just being heard, they're like, that just felt good. I don't know why. Because you see other people agreeing, being with you, able to tolerate, build that tolerance so that whatever you're going through becomes more tolerable. Just because someone was there with you. That in and of itself is healing and helps regulate emotion and affect. And then, so attention, affection. We all need affection. We need to know our child's level of affection, what feels safe. We may need affection, a hug, a smile, a pat on the back. We all need appreciation. I appreciate each and every one of you for showing up here today. I appreciate you, Bryan, for being here. Thank you so much for still doing what you do. We need to appreciate ourselves for showing up. We need to appreciate how hard our kids work every day and the stressors they have to endure, especially today, and adjust to. And so attention, affection, appreciation, we all need acknowledgement that we exist. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. We need to see and hear ourselves. We all need acknowledgement, and we all need autonomy, alone time. And so we all need some time alone and just to regroup, listen to some music, meditate, exercise, take a walk. These are all needs that we need to teach ourselves, teach our kids. They don't have to do all of them. Pick two, what works for you. So see yourself differently. It's not what's wrong with you. It's not that you won't behave. You can't behave. What's your developmental age? What are the 5 A's? When you're having a big feeling, when you're about to flip your lid, you can say, I'm about to flip my lid, and you model that for your kids. I'm about to flip my lid, and I'm gonna go in the other room. Now, if you have a child who needs you in what's called line of sight supervision, because you know that, you'll go, I'm going to go sit on the couch right over there. You tell them where you're going so they can still see you and feel that connection. But take care of yourself in that moment. And if it means putting on headphones and listening to a meditation, and I have a 2-minute meditation if anybody needs one, the quick fix to slow things down and gain perspective. What's important? Really meeting the unmet needs. And
Everybody needs that.
Everybody.
Meditation.
For yourself and for your child. So hand model the brain, teach trauma informed, practice the tools, time in, teach younger kids. My videos are for ages 3 to 11, or for older kids if they're developmentally younger. The 5 A's. I think that's it. That was my last point for today. So cool. Let's set it up for questions, Q&A. Okay. Can you see that?
I think the chat box.
Yes.
Let's see. I can see it on my side. Mm-hmm.
You can?
Yeah. You starting from the bottom or the top?
Let's start from, I answered some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Let's start from the, let's start from 12.
Okay, we're going to start from the top.
Oh, actually, no, let's start because I was answering some questions. Okay, let's start at 12:58. 12:58.
It's a good thing these aren't all questions.
Okay, I had a child within the first 15 minutes was threatening me with a pencil, yelling, throwing things. This all happened because it was time for him to do his homework. By the grace of God, I was able to stay calm, talk to him, but it took about an hour or more to get him to a place to help him do his homework. I didn't react. I talked calmly and acknowledged he was upset. We were, after a few hours, able to get his homework done. I believe he may be dyslexic because his numbers were written backwards. Any suggestions beyond what I did? It was scary.
How old? I don't have that question for some reason.
How old? And I want to keep 7.
He's 7. What minute was that question?
12. It was to me privately. So I want to say,
okay.
I was dyslexic. I used to write my name backwards, and I think he's being very hard on himself. I'm feeling shame. I'm just feeling he's hard on himself. So teach him the shamewich. And literally I draw a bun, just get 3 pieces of paper, a bun, a burger, middle piece, and a piece of paper on top, and write, this is something because we all need this. You don't want him to think this is because there's something about you. We all need to learn how to talk to ourselves with the sandwich, especially when we're learning new things, because he's hard on himself that he's doing the best that he can. So on the sandwich on the bun on the bottom is you're doing a great job and this is hard and you're doing the best that you can, and he has knowledge of his challenge, right? So he knows he struggles with this, and this dyslexia is hard, and you're figuring it out, and you're going to practice, and over time you're going to get through this and figure it out. Put that all on the burger, and then the bread on top is you're doing the best you can, and that's good enough. And we make mistakes, we're learning, you're figuring this out, and we're going to problem solve together to help get your work done so that you feel more confident, competent, and that you can complete things. And maybe his homework needs to be reduced. I talk a lot to schools. Again, with the whole stress model, kids can only tolerate so much. We want to know their window of stress tolerance so that they can master that. And when they can master that, they can push it a little bit more. But we have to find their sweet spot where they're like, yeah, I did that. Then he can start feeling good about himself and then feel more confident and take more risks and stop being so hard on himself. So I hope that helps. Anything else?
That's good. I'm gonna answer this one here. It says,
Yes.
my foster to adopt son just shuts down. I have a zombie, a vacant shell. I found holding his hand and talking calmly seems to work. Some more the longer I have him. He has let me know he can feel me and focuses on my words and hand to find a path back. I fear losing him to the void. Social workers freak if they hear I touch him in any way. I feel it is working. This is getting easier after 3 years. Does this sound right to you? And suggestions. And I'm going to say you're absolutely on the right track. What you are experiencing is a child with a lot of shock trauma. And so when he gets stressed and his brainstem opens up, that's shock, shutdown, depression, withdrawal is the other way hysterical is historical. So a child in shock who freezes, it's a freeze reaction. It's the same, it goes right along the lines of hysterical. It's just not outward. And so a lot of children are hysterical inward. And so you're describing a child who goes into shock and he freezes and he's like a turtle and he is in a void and he's by himself and he needs you to gently bring him back to the present. And I would say do more than even touch. I think the touching his hand is great. Move closer to him. And you just have to, it's kind of like that exercise Jeanette said. You know, when he shuts down, practice this. I love it. Practice makes perfect. Ask him when he gets really stressed and he shuts down, how close can you get? What feels good? And you know you're already holding his hand. So can you wrap your arms around him? Can you squeeze him? Can you pull him onto your lap? Can you rub his head? Can you make eye contact with him? Can you sing him a song? Can you rub his chest? Bring him back into the present. The whole time telling him, you're safe. You're going to be okay. You're safe. You're going to be okay. I'm here. I'm not leaving you. And when you can get that connection established where he can pull out of that shock, what's going to probably start to happen is emotion is going to follow it, because emotion needs to follow shock to start releasing the body. And it could even be a physical symptom. It could be a shaking of his legs. But you're absolutely on the right track. And that's my thought on that question.
Okay, so I'm going to answer one here. How do I repair calling my daughter a liar this morning? And then I screamed, I don't like liars. Major shame moment that I know I need to repair. Yes, and practice with yourself. Go to your mirror, because you're going to have emotion. When we experience our own shame and guilt, that's okay. And when kids see their parents' feelings about what they've done, it's very powerful, because that proves to the child, wow, you're telling me right now how important this relationship is. wow, I feel honored. That child is, are you talking, you feel that way about me? You feel sorry for something you've done that impacted me? Wow, that child's going to internalize that. So in attachment parenting, it's make prominent what you want prominent. So I don't even like labeling liar. I'm against anything negative. Don't even put it out there. Go, it's, I want, tell them what you want. I want honesty. I see that it's hard right now, and that's a vulnerability you're pointing out. It's hard to tell the truth right now. Not, I see you're lying, because what you're doing is you're making that more prominent. I see you're lying. And then it's, oh, you want to see lying, mom, dad? I want to show you lying. It's, I see we're having a hard time right now. I see it's hard to tell the truth right now. And when we're ready, we can work on this together. We're going to get through this. So again, it's a shared experience. I want us, say what you want. I want us to be able to stay connected. When you're having your big feelings, I want us to be together in it and march through it. And I'm going to work on me, and I know you're doing your best to work on you, and we're going to problem solve. And every time something happens, guess what? Because we're going to look at this as an opportunity. We're going to see this as an opportunity. Every time it comes up, we're going to go, this is hysterical. Okay, we're going to figure this out. And we're going to be a team about this, and we're going to figure this out together. So the child doesn't feel alone in their experience. Someone's got their back, and there's a we got ya attitude together. So always say what you want. So going back and apologizing is so beautiful.
It's good.
Children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This one says, how can I bring my child down when she is hysterical and beating her room with a baseball bat? So there's two parts of that I want to speak to. One is, and I call it the A to Z principle. Z is always the outcome. It's always the behavior. And in our society, we want to focus on X, Y, and Z. But you've got to start at A in order to get to Z. So instead of focusing on her beating her room with a baseball bat, number one, don't go in that room. Instead of focusing on that, what led up to that situation, and what's the A, B, C, D, E, F, G that you could have done differently that would have sent that whole experience in a different direction. So that's one of the things I want you to think about. Number two, she's beating her room with a baseball bat. Some children who come from, I don't know her history, some children who come from chaos feel more comfortable in chaos. And so she's creating chaos because it's familiar. So the room's going to be beat to hell. It's already beat to hell. There's nothing you can do about it. The thing you want to do is you want to go in and restore the relationship. Go in and restore the relationship, help her feel safe, connect and understand what it was that triggered her to cause her to want to destroy her room, and then talk about what you guys need to do moving forward, and then help her clean the room up. Don't leave it to her. Help her clean it up. And even if she doesn't want to help, clean it up and let her watch it. Because in that place, she's in a much scarier place. She's in that historical place. She's in a regress place, and she feels all alone. Let her experience you taking care of her in that place, because too many times we want to get focused on that behavior. No one wants holes in walls. No one wants windows broken out. But the truth of the matter is, it's going to happen when it comes to healing trauma.
Right, because kids work through their experiences by reenacting them in the present. And just like you said before earlier, they're trying to find a different result. So if we keep doing the same thing and getting mad and angry and upset with them, they're like, oh, this is working. We have to be, and this is what, what's the parenting program? But we need to be stronger, wiser, and kinder. in this work.
Mm.
And that's really grounding yourself and going, I'm the wise one here. I need to keep my lid on when my child's flipped and go, I'm trauma informed. I'm going to stay present in my mind and my body as best as I can. And that's good enough. And I'm going to show and I'm going to know how near or far I need to be with my child when they're aggressive and stay. And it's not what I'm saying, it's how I'm saying it. Because when kids are stressed, the first sense to go offline is audio. You could be talking and saying all stuff, they don't get it. They are watching you, they are watching everything you're doing. And if you can slow down your own body, be aware of how you're communicating. I'm here with you, honey. We're going to get through this. I know this is hard. Get below eye level again if you can. Not acting in a way that you're looking at them different, but just get below eye level so you're not appearing more as a threat visually to them. You know, you have to do trial and error too. You have to figure out what's the right dose. Bruce Perry talks about that. What's the right dance of attachment
Mm-hmm.
that I need to do right here? It's kind of like, figuring it out. You're in a playing field, you're in the ring now with your child. What's my dance with my child right now? Okay, I need to be aware of my 7 nonverbal cues. I need to pay attention to them. Is there something I'm doing that's causing distress? I need to slow down. Let me stay connected, because calling the police is only going to keep everyone, because that was a question, in stress mode and create more overwhelm and more threats. It's not going to be in your best interest, and it's not going to get you what you want. You need to really think about what it is you want. I want to help my child and me build a trusting relationship. If I call the police, what am I communicating? I'm not stronger, I'm not wiser, I'm not being kind about this. But I think it's also an indication that if we're feeling so scared and so overwhelmed inside, we need to figure that out. What is it that I need to do for myself so that I can stay more calm, not project fear and threat that my child could invade my world and cause me to die? Because what happens too is, and when I became a therapist and I was really just studying, like, wow, how does this dance happen? We have mirror neurons. So you say you're out to lunch with a friend and you show up at lunch and you're all happy and your friend is depressed. Well, by the end of the lunch, you walk away and you're so depressed. You're like spent. It's called mirror neurons. We are always picking up in relationship other people's emotions, other people's affect, and we internalize it. And so we need to learn how to shift and go, okay, that's their experience, and this is my experience, and differentiate the two. And what am I experiencing right now that's scary for me? And what can I be curious about that my child's experiencing right now? So I can help us both. But the parent needs to fill their bucket first. And talking and going to therapy. I'm a therapist. I still go to therapy. I still go to therapy. It makes me a better therapist. It makes me a better parent. It makes me learn how to figure all of this out and have more compassion for myself. Because when we can have more compassion for ourselves and what we've struggled and been challenged with, we can look at others and go, oh, we can spot it because we've got it. And that's from AA. But we see in other people, we identify, and we know, because we know how to handle it within ourselves, we know how to handle that with others. So it's projective identification. If we feel like we're completely engrossed in our child's experience and we are flipping our lids, that's a red flag for us to go talk to someone. Find a coach, find a therapist to figure out, why is it that I get so scared that I want to call the police and end everything and just put everything at risk. If it's a safety issue, that does need to be addressed. It does need to be talked about. Like Bryan was saying, sitting down with your kid and going, hey, you know what? it's really hard when we all get so upset and we all flip our lids and we're throwing and yelling things. We need to figure out a solution. Maybe it's a word, a buzzword that everybody goes, okay, the dragon's here. Okay, everybody stop what you're doing and freeze, right? There's something happening that needs to be softened, slowed, shifted in that moment. And if we can name it, we can tame it. So give it a word. The beast is here. We're seeing red right now. And then everybody has one of the 5 needs to take care of themselves. So it has to be, even with siblings, like, what can we do together when we're all feeling like we're just going to flip out and flip our lids and the sky is falling, because that's what it feels like. What can we each do so we each take care of ourselves and then, in essence, take care of each other and move through it? Because families are going to have conflicts. And part of being a family is learning how to get through that conflict together. And that needs to be talked about and modeled. So I hope that helps. Family meetings are great when there's intense things that happen in the house. It needs to be acknowledged, but not in a shameful way. It needs to be separated. We're going to work on this because we care about each other here. All right.
There's a couple of good ones here. One is what about feeling / beliefs that have morphed more into a separate personality? And when you try to acknowledge them more than the behavior, that they're more than the behavior, they more identify with that personality that's angry, mean, etc., than the deeper self. How do you allow them to see that innate self? And really what I like to encourage here is just focus on the whole child. If they need to cling to that personality right now because that personality makes them feel safe, it's probably defensive, it's developed as a defensive pattern in their life, let them cling to it. You can love that personality too. So you love that personality, you love the whole child. There's no separation. So that's kind of my response to that.
Okay.
And then the second question is, my 12-year-old adopted daughter is traumatized and numbs by looking at cartoons on her phone all day. She claims we are not her parents and refuses to engage with us. Removing devices leads to violence, huge distress, and threats to harm self and others. Any advice?
Okay, so I'm already thinking she's not feeling connected. You know, adoptees have a very difficult sense of belonging, and her age group, 12, they need a big time sense of belonging. So I don't know if there's cultural differences, racial, ethnic differences. That's just what I was picking up on. If maybe you could share more about that, because I feel like she's not feeling seen and heard in the world. And if you apply these tools today to form a stronger connection with her, I think you will see a difference. She may feel shamed. Okay, a change of school, house, and area. So she's had a lot of changes. She's having to adapt to a lot. And it's seeming like, kids either hyper act out or hypo. And she sounds like she's the kid who just goes inside. She really could use somebody to talk to. And I do run a teen and tween support group. So the first picture that you saw when the screen came up was Celia Center. Celia Center is a nonprofit organization that I started 10 years ago here in Los Angeles. We provide support groups for parents of foster care and adoption, birth parents, and adoptees, young and adults. So if you go to celiacenter.org, you could have her join our next Zoom meeting, which is actually next Saturday at 1 o'clock. Actually, no, for tweens. That's Friday at 4 o'clock Pacific time. I'm in Los Angeles. She needs to see that she's not alone in her experience. I also do work with teens, Zoom meetings, things like that, to help her make sense of what's going on inside of her, because it feels like she's shutting down within her own self. Okay, yeah, it's hard. You know, there are some books. That is she a reader? Does she read books? Because there's an adoptee that's now writing books for kids. So I think she needs to find some other kids like her. And so if because you're saying you're in the UK, if you can find an organization that does similar to what I'm doing, she needs a teen support group, a Zoom meeting. She needs to be with other kids like herself so she doesn't feel so alone.
Well, and I'd also say, Jeanette,
Yeah.
encouraging the parents to connect with things that she's interested in. So maybe if it's watching cartoons, so there's going to be a time when you have to limit the devices, and you have to try to fill that in with her, because some research says that when children are on electronics, their brain is actually in a flow state. So their chemicals are actually optimized. All their chemicals and hormones in their brain and body are optimized when they're on electronics. And that's why it feels so good, and that's why it's so addictive. It's the same thing that extreme athletes do and gamers. They move into a flow state and everything is optimized. And when you're off of that, you crash. And so that's a part of then why you see the parents see the tantrums and the outbursts and the attempts to want to threats to self-harm. So meet her on her terms, connect with her, work on the relationship, watch some cartoons together, tell her you're going to have to limit it sometimes, and try to fill in some of that time with her. One of the things that a lot of parents do these days is they tell their kids, get off the games and go outside and find something to do, because that's how we were raised. But when we were kids, we didn't have all the electronics to begin with, so we were always much more creative that way. So I think really the parents working on the relationship more than anything, even more than the device itself, work on the relationship, watch some cartoons with her, do some things she's really interested in, is going to go a long ways.
Yeah. So it's joining is what Brian's talking about. And I'm going to tell you the parallel play. Bruce Perry talks about this side by side. So it's let's, hey, we're going to all, and even if your child is like, oh, I don't want to do it, it's don't ignore the child, ignore the behavior. So yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to watch it. Let them sulk, let them, but watch something funny, because what's going to happen is when something funny happens in the movie and you're sitting side by side, you're going to go, you're going to make eye contact, you're going to connect, and it's going to shift things. So focus on being playful and pacing the relationship, joining and joining. If they're having affect, go, yeah, I know this is really hard. So you're matching their affect, connecting with them, not mocking them, and also knowing, what is the dance here. These kids are not going to be easy. You can't just jump right in, and we have to be able to tolerate with them again the uncomfortableness of being in relationship and feeling connection and feeling awkward and being okay with that, and modeling for them like, this is okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. We're going to watch a film. Let's do 2 hours. And I like to have incentives, not as bribery for behavior, but bribery for relationship.
Mm,
There's a difference.
yeah.
Okay, guess what? Because it's the word is entice you. Guess what? We had an idea. Or you can give us some ideas if it's parents, or mom had an idea. Let's watch this new comedy. It looks so good. And if you're not excited, they're not going to get excited. So you got to get out of your own skin and say, and then we're going to have an ice cream party. Again, like Brian was saying, find out their interests, use their interests as an enticement to do something together in the relationship. So every kid's different, and you got to sit back and think about your child and go, what are their interests? What gets them excited? Even Dr. Phil just said about this. He said, you need to know what your teen's currency is. What do they want? It's true. And you got to use that to entice them, especially with attachment challenge children.
Hey, do we get a transcript of the chat?
That would be great. We can do that.
I think we do.
Yes.
Because I know
Okay.
we're at our 2 hours, and I
We
think
are.
maybe we can follow up with some of the folks that have asked the questions.
Yes, we are recording this. We will make it available. I hope everyone gains so much information today. I'm grateful to be here and share this with all of you. And I'm so grateful to Bryan for making himself available. So
Okay.
thank you. Bryan, you want to say anything?
Yes, just appreciate everyone and appreciate you, Jeanette. You're amazing.
Thank
God
you
bless you.
so much. And I wish you all stay safe, stay well, and stick together. We'll get through this together. And we hope to see you again and do this some more times.
Sure.
Okay. So thank you very much.
And
Take
you'll
care.
email the link to the recording to everyone.
Yes, I will do that. I
Okay,
will do that.
all right. Thank you.
Notes. Okay. Thank you. Bye.